All right, today we're going to jump into NFTs, but more on the branded front and what that might mean for the marketplace in its entirety and kind of the trends of where NFTs are going. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back to TechPath. Today joining us is Trevor George and Zach Bruch, who are coming over from a company called Recur. Great to have you guys on the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Excellent. All right, so Zach, where are you today?
Today I'm in New York City, but I spend 90% of my time in Miami.
All right, excellent. How about you, Trevor?
Outside of Detroit.
Now, the Recur, does it have a centralized office, or are you one of these companies that have kind of evolved through the virtual realm of people everywhere?
We are fully remote. Yeah, we have no offices. Likely, as we get more team members in certain concentrated areas, we'll have optionality, but currently fully remote.
Kind of go in there.
We're a metaverse business. We're everywhere.
Right. Zach, let's start with you a little bit about Recur and just in general, the business model, kind of what you guys were trying to do to get this project off the ground and its mission.
Sure. So Recur builds white label NFT solutions for some of the world's largest IP. We're 365, meaning we're always on. You can always come engage with our assets. And our assets aren't, $1 million. We try to have our assets be priced anywhere between, 10 or 100 or 20 type dollars, so everyone can access and enjoy our NFTs. And of course, we want everyone to be able to take our NFTs wherever they want. So Recur is blockchain agnostic, meaning we don't have our own blockchain. We didn't build our own blockchain. We're able to mint to various different chains. And you can actually swap chains. So we created swapping technology. So even if you mint today on, say, something like Ethereum, we could swap that asset onto another chain today, tomorrow, or in 3 years from now, ultimately giving the fan the widest range of utility and the brands that we work with the widest range of distribution.
So cross-chain swapping, that's something that we've started to see a few companies kind of moving in this direction. I think at some point it's going to be a huge popularity factor in terms of where you go to do things like this. Trevor, when you look at kind of the marketplace of how NFTs have exploded, 2021 being really kind of the breakout year for it, Recur's timing, obviously perfect. Talk to me about what you guys had to do to get this kind of off the ground in terms of a technology stack standpoint, what the team had to look like, that kind of background.
Yeah, it was kind of the perfect blend of both worlds. NFTs aren't exactly pure crypto, and it's not only licensed IP or character driven or movie clip driven. It's really the combination of both. And I come from the licensing and creative and marketing background, and Zach comes from the tech and crypto and finance background. And so together we were able to surround ourselves with the best in class executives in the licensing world, guys that worked at Disney and Warner, and equally as much in terms of blockchain engineers and our tech stack. And the company formed rapidly. Zach and I and our team, we used our backgrounds to approach the same licensed IP that I've worked with my entire career and help build digital experiences for. And now we are ushering them into the NFT space.
Trevor, so you're talking about licensed IPs. This is explosion. I mean, there's just so many explosions happening. Obviously, we saw the NFL go into their partnership with Dapper Labs. We've seen movement on Avalanche. We've seen projects coming now over from XRP. Just the flood of companies and projects that are really moving into this space. Licensing, I think, is going to be a key advantage. You guys seem to have a little bit of a pole position here with your experience and also what you guys have done. Can you talk to us about the structure of how these licensing deals are coming about, and when would we see maybe some of the first drops?
Yeah, and in the NFT space, we bucket NFTs in two buckets. There's digital art, and then there's digital collectibles.
Right.
We aren't in the digital art game in terms of speculating on pure digital assets. We are in the digital collectibles game, which are the digital versions of physical collectibles that people are used to today. And if you can imagine, the NFT world took the licensing industry by storm in February, and it caught them off guard, right? We're talking large global brands with hundreds of millions of fans, and they weren't ready to jump into the NFT space day one, back in, let's say, February or January. And so in between then and now, companies like ourselves have been speaking to licensed brands about entering the space, given our different approaches. And that's why you're probably seeing a lot of the activity of finally some of these larger organizations have, assessed the market, chosen the partners that are right for them, and now you're going to start to probably see another wave of not only interest but commitments. There's going to be a lot coming from us. We announced our first partnership called NFTU, which is our umbrella brand that is going to house all college NFTs and assets, from everything from the logos and indicia to mascots to video highlights and still moments of players in every sport: football, basketball, baseball, and all the Olympic sports across all the colleges in America. I would expect NFTU to launch literally in the coming months.
Very cool. I think on the heels of what we heard, obviously, with the NFL, I think people are starting to, the laymen are starting to get a grasp of what this really means or could mean for licensing in general. If you look at sports licensing, obviously some of the biggest licensing in the world, I'm kind of curious as to whether or not we'll start to see licensing into things like Pokemon, into some of the more, I should say, more already collectible elements that are moving in that direction. Disney already obviously moving in that direction, what we've seen with Marvel, all those kind of moves in place. Do you think that that is going to be, if you had to classify it, kind of like what the collectibles market is today, you've got some people who really see a certain class of collectibles that do so much better. Do you think NFTs will shake out similarly? Or do you feel like this is going to create some new tracks for all of these licensing opportunities? Zach or Trevor, either one of you could take that.
Yeah, I think the natural extension for NFTs are what is already collectible, right? That's easy to digest. If it's physically collectible, whether it's a sneaker or a Pokemon card, then you can assume you could create a digital collectible around the same community. Mm-hmm. We actually believe that there is likely a convergence of the two, that they don't live mutually exclusive of each other. And so certainly those companies that have a footing in physical collectibles will find a way to launch their digital presences and then possibly integrate the two. And it just depends on the size of the organization as to when they will enter. Companies brands that are smaller, they have less risk in entering a new nascent space, and so they might jump in feet first or head first, whereas larger organizations might test the waters and understand how their community responds and which angle they might need to take.
Yeah. Zach, I want to jump to the technology quickly. You guys have done some unique things within the ecosystem of building upon this. I like the multi-chain capability within it. Talk to me about where the difference is in terms of the technology versus, say, something that's happening over on other houses that are taking some different routes in terms of minting NFTs and giving the marketplace some flexibility.
Sure. So I'll talk about a couple of different things that make us uniquely different. So as Trevor and I and the rest of our team were looking at the entire industry, we realized that there were certain things that were missing. One of those things was really this concept of a recurring royalty once an asset left the platform. So what we did was we actually embedded in our smart contracts a recurring royalty and actually created the standard across Ethereum. It was EIP 2981. Our team built and participated in creating the official royalty standard across Ethereum, meaning that even if we sold an asset on our platform and it left our platform, the original IP owner, the creator, the musician, the artist will be able to participate in that secondary sale, no matter where it is, forever. And that is a really powerful thing, and we're proud to have open sourced that. So all sorts of creators and artists globally can do the same thing. So that's one thing that we went out and did and gave that back to the community, and we'll continue doing on multiple different chains. So that's always the case. So that's one thing that's uniquely different about ourselves. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, we're blockchain agnostic, meaning we're willing to mint and interact with so many different blockchains. And in essence, this future-proofs us. Who are we to choose the winning chain? If you look historically back at the top, call it 10 blockchains within crypto over the past 5-10 years, it's constantly changing and or different chains are taking different types of roles. And our view is that there could be certain chains that have one killer application or where so much activity goes to, whether it's a social app, a game, financial application, whatever the case may be. If you're buying an NFT and you're spending your hard-earned money, on an asset, it should give you the most utility, and you should be able to take it wherever you want. So I think that's a big differentiator of what we're building. And lastly, we're not building, just a marketplace. A lot of these NFT businesses are building just a marketplace, and it's really great, right? As this is a brand new industry. We're part of the group that's bootstrapping this industry, and we love to see so many other businesses building really cool things. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, our assets can go leave our platform and go participate in those marketplaces, in those games, in those metaverses, in those applications. So we want to keep seeing it. And a lot of them are complementary to what we're doing. But what we are focusing on is storytelling. And Trevor and his background from the creative side and so many of the wonderful folks we brought in are such great storytellers that when you're buying one of our assets, you can continue to engage with it. And even on our platform, there's new experiences, there's gamification, there's play. You go and can enjoy the asset in a different way rather than just owning it and just holding on to it and just looking at it on your screen, which can be fun. You can also really enjoy it further than just that.
Yeah. The OpenSea CEO kind of alluded to that a few weeks ago, talking about kind of where NFTs were going to evolve, being experiences, kind of moving beyond the static, image or collectible, so to speak. So I would say that's definitely on track there. And I like the capacity for the artist and also just in general, because of the licensing aspect of them being able to participate in the post. Because you don't get that in like baseball cards. I mean, once the card is out there, it's out there and it's in a captive market that they don't really have any control over at that time. So, and same thing with almost any physical collectible.
And think about our NFTU program. One of the most amazing things we're doing is leaning into NIL. These college athletes had no way to monetize ever before. And now by working with us at NFTU and all the wonderful colleges and brands and CLC and Veritone and, some of the NIL agencies, we're allowing these athletes to monetize, and today, tomorrow, and in the future. So even if God forbid they got hurt later on, if they were great in college, they'd still be able to participate in the future sales of their NFTs. Or maybe in college they're a decent player and a fan of theirs bought their NFT, and then over time they get to the NFL or they go somewhere else, or they do something else wonderful in entertainment or whatever, and they become more popular that way, and then that NFT becomes more popular and they get to continue to monetize. So it's not just artists, it's athletes, it's everyone. Anyone that was involved gets to participate in the future, which has never before been possible. So you're giving so much power back to the creator and giving so much access to so many different people globally to participate. And that's what crypto really is all about, is giving new access, breaking down barriers. So at Recur, we're looking at it like we are here to remove barriers and become this gateway for so many folks to enter the metaverse. And we're proud of that.
Yeah, I like it. Trevor, let's jump over to money. Yeah, so 50 million Series A, you guys jumped in with digital. Your valuation now plus 300 million. Things are looking good and on the upside here. How are you guys going to structure that capital and start to move it into action with Recur? What's your plan?
Yeah, I think that the raise was a testament to our team and licensing partnerships and tech, and that's exactly where we're going to invest the money, in those three areas. So we're going to continue to build out our world-class team. We're going to continue to engage with our licensing partners and future licensing partners, and those deals have economic terms that we'll support. And then from a marketing standpoint, we will look to support our programs with the funds that we've raised.
So lots of previous investors. This was Defi Alliance, Courtside VC, Volt Capital. We've seen Gary V in the list, JST Capital, Divergence. A lot of really good, heavy-handed, tech-forward investors with, in many cases, much like what you see in Silicon Valley, is that a lot of times those tech-forward investors can definitely bring in, one, a big ecosystem within what their network is, but also in some cases can really kind of bring in maybe new ideas and new evolution. Have you seen that come over in the space, like what we've seen with, new startups in Silicon Valley where they've really leveraged the benefit of their investors themselves to help them kind of catapult what they're doing from an idea standpoint. Trevor or Josh, or either one can take that.
Zach, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach. Yeah, of course. So when we were thinking about which investors we wanted to bring into our rounds, for us, it was most important that they became a partner. So on the digital side, being able to work with a guy like Steve Cohen, who has extreme background and an amazing background in art collecting, one of the greatest investors of all time. He understands liquidity, he understands NFTs at such an amazing level and understands where they can go. Mark Daniel, Benjamin Milstein, who supported him and who founded Digital alongside him, have been as well in the NFT space for years and have such a great grasp on where things are going and how to cultivate community within the ecosystem. And if you look at some of our earlier investors, the Defi Alliance, Joe Lubin, co-founder of Ethereum, Gary Vaynerchuk, Courtside VC, Volt Capital, so many other ones, JST Capital, a bunch of other great folks, Chris Hermida, Calvin Liu, all of these guys have immense background in crypto, as well as understanding community and have different ways of thinking. And we lean on these guys a lot, right? We want to talk to them. So we chat with them and take their input all the time. And, we're excited for you to see what we're putting out in the coming months because, we're working on a lot of really, really, really interesting things.
Trevor, I want to talk about the idea of white labeling, the model that you guys are putting out for, potential white label NFTs and kind of how that works potentially in the future, and maybe how general business might say, hey, maybe it's time for us to develop some licensing product with it. I can think of many brands who probably dabble in licensing, but haven't necessarily seen an opportunity like what we're seeing right now in NFTs. Where do you guys see that going in terms of those emerging brands that are coming onto the space that really are wide open onto, they're not seasoned pros in licensing. Maybe this is their first foray into it. Do you see any kind of opportunity there?
Yeah, I think an analogy can be drawn from history in two ways. One from the e-commerce space, and the other from licensing. And in my career, I started out witnessing and licensing IP, and then creating physical product and selling it through retail, through brick and mortar retailers. And what happened over the past decade or 15 years is, as more tools developed in the e-commerce or digital world, it enabled licensed brands to speak directly to their customer. And so the licensing model changed from, let's license the IP and sell it under a different brand name, to why doesn't the licensed IP partner with a best-in-class partner in blockchain technology, as an example, to help them speak directly to their consumer? And so we built our model around exactly that. We already saw the evolution happen once in e-commerce from retail to direct to consumer. And we know that that's going to happen in NFTs as well, right? These brands want to speak directly to the consumer. It's just as much about a revenue opportunity as it is about an extension to their brand. And you can't extend the brand if they can't speak directly to that consumer. So that was the purpose behind the model. And I think all the value will accrue back to the brands themselves directly. In e-commerce, one could make an analogy that NFTs, or the transaction experience, is like e-commerce, except it's not, right? You have to have liquidity. There's buyers and sellers. There's you're buying something of value and storing it in a wallet, versus an e-commerce transaction where you're buying it one time, leaving and having it shipped to you. You don't even have to worry about the transaction after that. And so, similar to how e-commerce grew 15, 20 years ago, there was no one logging on Shopify, no brand, and creating their own experience. It was handheld by some agency or development partner to create the whole experience for them. And then as the technology became more accessible and the idea of e-commerce became more, similar or like across many, brands started taking on or taking control of their own experiences. And so we think the same will happen in the NFT space. Today, it's still very nascent. What an NFT experience means is undefined, right? Each kind of main big player is defining that roadmap. But as that sort of settles, the players that have built the technology to support these brands perhaps will enable brands that maybe couldn't enter today because they're just not big enough or can't get the liquidity or don't have the wherewithal to enter properly. But it's going to take time.
Yeah. Zach, I want to jump to you on this, and this is the metaverse. You look at kind of the evolution of where NFTs came from, which was really more of the nascent digital art that people kind of cut their teeth on. We're starting to see a lot more movement into experiences. We're also looking at NFT gaming as the explosion with what we've seen with Axie Infinity and many others. What are your thoughts on the metaverse in terms of it building out? Where do you see the big lanes developing? Because it seems like it's just so early right now.
Well, that's right. It's really early, and this is something I talk about, quite often. Is that if you look back at the history of the internet, community is what drove everything. So in
Right.
the late '90s, we had internet bulletin boards, and then from there, AOL chat rooms and Reddit and Discord now, where the community really gets involved and sort of sets where things go, and community controls everything. So I think a similar thing will happen within the metaverse. As more folks start entering the metaverse and exploring the digital world, we will understand where that goes. Today, it's very digital, and there's pixelated avatars and little games that you can play. There's also large games that are happening, like Roblox and things like that. That it in itself is a metaverse. But we just raised $50 million. There's other phenomenal businesses raising a ton of capital, and to me, this is a signal that so much more money is flowing into the ecosystem, which means there's going to be a ton of great development. And with great development comes more immersive experiences. So all of a sudden, the metaverse can look really different. Today, the metaverse can be so many different types of things. Like right now, we're having an interview over Zoom, or you work out on a Peloton, or you're communicating with your friends on an app. That could be sort of like a metaverse. In the future, the experience could be drastically different, and it might feel like we're in the same exact room, and that's a metaverse. And then all of a sudden, you have all these large brands in the metaverse that are selling their goods, or you're going to their amusement parks, or you're doing all sorts of different types of things in this metaverse. And as Trevor alluded on earlier, there's going to be a lot of crossover between the physical world, the meat space, and the metaverse. And that might create more immersive experiences, more rich experiences, and more meaningful experiences, because all of a sudden you could take something from the physical world and bring it with you in some capacity into the digital world, or have these digital experiences and bring them with you into the physical world. So if you participated in something in the metaverse, maybe it means you get to go and enjoy a concert or a conference or an event in the physical world, or maybe it means you can redeem a cool piece of merch. And that in itself is really cool, because when you walk around every day, you're walking around Manhattan and someone sees you in your Bored Ape Yacht Club hat, it's really cool. And it signals to all of them, hey, I'm in this little club in the metaverse. And so I think a lot of really interesting things will be built around that, but it'll be built by the community. Of course, groups like Recur and other businesses will help that process, but community is what's going to build it. Community is going to drive the future. It always has throughout the history of the internet, and it will here in the metaverse.
Trevor, there are a lot of people talking about this right now. Most of our audience, they invest a lot, but either in NFTs and or in cryptocurrencies in general. We have a lot of people that follow us because of the tech space. But when you look at where the trends are going, and let's just say, we'll take the tip of the spear here being mostly the Bitcoin price and cryptocurrency as it is today. People call it the bull market. We track it pretty heavily here. That starts to fade and we enter the bear market. People are saying, we have pundits, experts talking about NFTs could really take a big hit at that point. I'm not necessarily one of them. I'm kind of on the other side of things because I see so much innovation coming at us. What are your thoughts on kind of that gap between the leading, indicator being the cryptocurrency index, so to speak, versus what will happen during the bear market with the NFTs? What are your thoughts there?
Maybe I'll take a first stab, and then Zach, feel free to chime in. But I think we see ebbs and flows in the crypto markets as we do the traditional markets. So I'm sure the same thing will happen in the liquidity of NFTs as well. But we look at them as something completely different. The idea of the metaverse is happening. There are hundreds of millions of people that have avatars of themselves. They've identified themselves on gaming platforms, on the internet, on social media platforms, and there's pictures of themselves. And so once you identify yourself, just like you do in the physical world with the driver's license, what's next? You need your things. It's the things that we collect, that we buy, the Gucci bag, the Yeezy shoes, the collectible Pokemon card, whatever, right? These are the things that we talk about with our friends all day long in the physical world. And the metaverse is here. The digital world is here. We're already in it. We're in it right now in this conversation. And if we're here, then our things are a natural next step. So sure, I think there's going to be ebbs and flows as fear and hope arise, but hope is really not a strategy. I think what we have to acknowledge is that collecting our things in the digital world, it's here.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is this this flash growth over the first part of the year, and obviously what we've seen with OpenSea and just the insane volume and the number of companies that have started to move into NFTs in general that have really kind of started to shift the mindset. I think a lot of people are still a little bit unsure as to where that marketplace is going to play out. If you guys, when you are looking at going forward, so obviously you're forward thinkers today, you're looking at what's going to happen in the next 5 years. We're going to see a lot more ramp up, a lot more adoption phase of both traditional investors and in general the mass population moving into this space. Is there any one particular or two particular trends that you're watching right now that you think 2, 3, 5 years down the road really have an opportunity here in both the metaverse and also in the development of NFTs? Zach, you want to lead off with that?
Interoperability. Right
Okay.
now, people want to focus on building an NFT on one chain or another chain, but the reality is there's room for multiple chains within the crypto world. And that might be a controversial statement, but there's going to be lots of great apps and lots of great games, lots of great social networks, all sorts of amazing innovation in all sorts of different places. And of course, there's going to be chains that are absolutely garbage, but there are going to be certain things that are wonderful. And you're going to want to take your NFT with you everywhere. The whole purpose of NFTs is to really have true ownership of a digital asset. And if you can't take that asset with you wherever you want, do you really have true ownership? So I think interoperability will be this massive topic, and you will need to be able to make sure that your NFTs can move around. Now, does that mean that a lot of the value won't accrue to any one chain? No, but it does mean that there's going to be a wide ecosystem, and you're going to want to be able to participate in that, and NFTs are going to be your key to participate in those things. So that's one topic within NFTs and the digital space that I think is going to be very relevant. We're done with the time where you're going onto Fortnite and buying a Fortnite skin and not able to take it with you anywhere. That's done. You got to be able to take it everywhere. And consumers will demand it.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of creating that, a much more open marketplace for sure. Trevor, on the last question here I have, just in reference to what's happening within the ETH world right now, obviously ETH being the primary vindicator of NFTs today, gas fees, a big challenge. Many people are looking at until ETH 2.0 rolls out that could be a little bit of a pushback, which is why we've started to see so much movement on Solana, Avalanche, many others that have kind of moved into the space. What are your thoughts in terms of the chain architecture? Because obviously there is going to be some players out there that emerge as more dominant ones than others. Is there anything you guys are looking at that you feel really confident about?
Zach, I'll flip this to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the value today is accruing to Ethereum, right? We've seen all sorts of large art projects and all sorts of other great innovative NFT projects, and a lot of those accrue back to Ethereum. And why? Well, they have the most developers in the world, the largest amount of wallets, and which in turn means the widest range of users. So naturally, that's where a lot of the development will be happening. But over the past, call it 6 months, you've seen so many new developers go and enter new ecosystems like Solana, like Avalanche, and they're beginning to build there. So what that looks like in the next 6-12 months, we don't know, but we are seeing a lot of new developer activity happening there. So I do think that's very relevant, because where the developers go, where the community goes, the same way how community is determining culture and how things play out in the metaverse, community within these ecosystems determine how successful the chain will be as well. If there's a big development community, if more people are building metaverses and games and products on top of it, then you're going to want to move your NFTs there as well too. Or even one person might want to go play a game there. Yeah. So we, again, are blockchain agnostic. We're not speculating on which chain will be the best, but we are preparing so that our assets can move and be interoperable.
Sure.
And that's our view on it today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Zach and Trevor, thank you so much for stopping in today. It's been great having you on the show. We'll definitely have you guys back as things start to roll
Thanks,
out
Paul.
for you. All right.
Thanks, Paul.
We'll see
Appreciate
you
it.
later.
Take care.
All right, you guys are listening in over on the podcast right now. Thanks a lot. We appreciate that. But remember, the best way to get these interviews and see some of our graphics, our analysis, some of the charts that we do here on the show is to jump over to the YouTube channel and subscribe right there. And of course, that's the best place. You can also leave comments. Let us know what you want to see next. I know everybody's going crazy over NFTs right now. More projects, more founders and innovators like Zach and Trevor. And we're going to do that. We're going to try to bring back as many as we can and as fast as we can because the market is definitely heating up. If you want to reach me direct, just hit me up on Twitter. It's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.